3 years after my demise, Shen Jizhou finally commenced his quest for a suitable match. However, he invariably brought a child along, incessantly discussing baby food. Unable to contain my frustration, I contemplated creating a stir to startle him. Yet, the child pointed at me and blinked. "Daddy, there is." Before the sentence could be completed, Shen Jizhou swiftly peeled a shrimp and stuffed it into her mouth, not casting a glance aside. "There is nothing there." Is there something around me? Glancing left and right, I discern nothing particularly remarkable. Never mind. I drift closer to them gradually, just in time to witness Shen Jizhou removing the wedding ring from his left hand's ring finger and placing it into his pocket. Excellent. He has finally recalled that he is here for a blind date. After all, a man who remains infatuated with his deceased wife is hardly appealing to anyone. I float around Beibei, making several silly faces at Shen Jizhou, yet they remain unresponsive. It appears they cannot see me. Hence, I settle beside the woman in the empty seat next to her. She seems relatively pleased with Shen Jizhou, a smile gracing her lips. I can accept the child, but in return, I require compensation on the prenuptial agreement in other areas. In truth, aside from having a child, Shen Jizhou possesses truly commendable qualities. The sole heir to the Shen and Su family conglomerates, standing at 185 meters with broad shoulders and a narrow waist, he exudes an alluring charm tempered with sophistication. In our youth, I often spared him due to his striking visage, only leaving a few bruises on his back. After peeling the last shrimp, Shen Jizhou placed it into Beibei's bowl. He then leisurely wiped his hands, his tone languid. "No problem. However, I must sleep each night with my late wife's tablet beside me and devote 3 hours weekly to rituals. Oh, and I cannot wear white clothing, as it is inauspicious." Upon hearing this, the woman fell silent. Her gaze then landed on the white shirt beneath Shen Jizhou's suit, and she bit her lip, saying, "So, what color is your shirt? A riotous white, perhaps?" Her composure is remarkable. Had it been me, I would have already begun with the sarcasm. Shen Jizhou seemed somewhat taken aback. "Is this white? Apologies, I am colorblind." How absurd. Ultimately, the woman, unable to tolerate any longer, grabbed her bag and prepared to leave. Beibei hopped off her chair and waved her tiny hand with practiced ease.
"Auntie, em sorry."
Grandma says Daddy isn't very clever. 2. The gathering dispersed. Shen Jizhou drove Beibei home. In the car, Beibei, having eaten her fill, dozed in the back seat. I gently enveloped her in an ethereal embrace. She is already 5 years old, increasingly resembling Shen Jizhou, save for the faint dimples at the corners of her mouth, which are reminiscent of me. Alas, I could only accompany her for 2 fleeting years. My heart aches with emptiness. Ghosts do not shed tears, which is truly vexing. I looked up, catching Shen Jizhou's gaze in the rearview mirror. He glanced momentarily before swiftly returning his focus to the road ahead. I floated to the front passenger seat, stretching languidly as I used to. "You say you're getting on in years, yet you still haven't found a companion. If you wait until you're truly old, no one will look your way. While you still possess some charm, you ought to hasten to secure a marriage." Out of the corner of my eye, I noticed Shen Jizhou's left hand had once again donned the wedding ring, unbeknownst to me when.
"Oh."
I leaned closer, scrutinizing. "When you initially commissioned this pair of diamond rings, you remarked they were merely ordinary. Why now do they appear as treasures?" As I age. Perhaps my mouth remains the only thing that has grown sharper. As expected, silence ensued. I was merely talking to myself. How utterly dull. In the past, engaging in banter with Shen Jizhou was a daily delight, yet now, as a ghost, I find solitude in the mortal realm exceedingly tedious. I chose instead to gaze vacantly at the scenery outside. Suddenly, I heard Shen Jizhou quietly mutter, "Do you think I'm old?" I didn't catch it clearly and leaned in, curious. "What are you mumbling about? You sound like a buzzing mosquito." Shen Jizhou fell silent once more, a fleeting smile gracing his lips. How perplexing. Just as I settled into silence, Shen Jizhou's phone rang. It was a voice call from the group chat Alliance of Caregivers. That name was one I had coined long ago. Upon answering, 4 participants were already present, including Shen Jizhou's parents and mine. "Xiaozhou, how did today's meeting go?" It was my mother who inquired. 3. The Shen and Su families have been close for generations, living nearby. Thus, Shen Jizhou and I grew up together, akin to childhood sweethearts. However, ours was a rather tumultuous relationship. I would climb trees while he kicked the trunks. He would swim while I hid the towels. In essence, we engaged in a perpetual game of rivalry. As we matured and inherited our respective family businesses, we continued to undermine each other in the marketplace, striving to prove our superiority. Yet, our parents from both families had arranged our betrothal. Since we didn't particularly dislike one another, we ended up marrying. 1 year into our marriage, Bebe was born. 3 years later, I passed away. After my death, the burdens of the Shen and Su family conglomerates fell squarely on Shen Jizhou's shoulders. Additionally, his parents awaited his filial duty, and he had a child to raise. He has managed quite well. He did not take the opportunity to assimilate the Su family conglomerate and has treated my parents and Bebe kindly. Thus, he has remained true to my memory for 3 years, which, by any measure, is sufficient. My parents, unable to bear the thought of him being alone for a lifetime, began introducing him to potential partners after I mentioned it in a dream. Alas, life necessitates progression. Ghosts must move forward as well. Shen Jizhou chuckled lightly, his tone casual. Mom, there's no rush. I'm currently driving Bebe home. Let us talk later. My mother sighed. You, my child. Very well. Remember to come over for dinner with Bebe next week. Shen Jizhou agreed, remaining silent thereafter. Our parents exchanged a few more words before the call ended as the car entered the community. Shen Jizhou lifted Bebe from the back seat, cradling her against him. Along the way, he gently patted her, his voice softer than the summer night breeze. Little darling, we've arrived home. How about a bath before sleeping? I followed closely behind him, watching Bebe slowly open her eyes. She has always had a pleasant disposition, rarely experiencing morning grouchiness. Perhaps it is because her parents are both so fiery, resulting in a child who acts as a calming extinguisher. Daddy, Mommy is here. Bebe rubbed her eyes, striving to fully awaken, though they soon fluttered half-closed again. Shen Jizhou did not pause his steps. Yes, Mommy has always been here.
4.
The home remained unchanged from 3 years ago. My beloved trinkets and toys were still in their places. My clothes hung in the wardrobe. And even the bedding set on the bedroom-s bed was still the one I had chosen. Shen Jizhou appears quite nostalgic. I floated nearby, listening as Shen Jizhou read Bebe a bedtime story. He was markedly more adept than 3 years prior, swiftly lulling Bebe to sleep. As she slept, she clutched the cherry-patterned pajamas I had bought for her. My heart ached at the sight. I climbed onto the bed to lie beside her, attempting to draw her into my embrace. Yet, how is it that I cannot touch her? Being a ghost is truly frustrating. I must inquire with the King of Hell if there exists a method, even if it costs a fortune, to simply make contact. Over the years, both Shen Jizhou and our parents have burned significant amounts of paper money for me. With these funds, I gathered other wealthy sisters to venture into real estate in the underworld. I am now the wealthiest in that realm. This opportunity to linger for several days in the mortal world is the result of 3 years of accumulated merit, coupled with a substantial expenditure. It is merely to behold them one last time before reincarnation. I did not linger long beside Bebe, for the aura of a ghost is too heavy and may harm her. Thus, I discreetly floated into the bathroom. Shen Jizhou was showering. In the mist, the water traced the contours of his muscular physique, bathing his skin in a rosy hue. After 3 years apart, this body remains irresistibly captivating. I swallowed hard, surveying him from behind, then from the side, and finally facing him directly. Shen Jizhou leaned against the wall with one hand, pushing back his damp hair. Sumo. Passing so soon, and you haven't tried out your 100 positions in the bathroom yet. He smiled, gazing directly in my direction, as if genuinely addressing me. My face flushed with embarrassment, and I immediately erupted in a flurry of curses. Dog, I've been dead for 3 years. Can you leave some dignity for me? Just asking if you can? After hurling my words at him, I exited the bathroom, for it was no longer suitable to linger. I reminisced about the time spent in bed with Shen Jizhou. Neither of us ever yielded to the other. He would lock me down, demanding I call him brother, while I would bite back, insisting he call me sister. To gain the upper hand, I specifically researched 100 positions for the bathroom, determined to outdo him. To my surprise, that scoundrel was the first to relent, praising my resourcefulness. He even encouraged me to explore the bedroom, the living room, and the kitchen. TSK, how vexing. After Shen Jizhou finished his shower, he reclined on the bed, engrossed in a copy of Parenting Encyclopedia. He rarely wore glasses, but when he did, he appeared as a charming rogue. I floated nearby, fixated on him. He remained handsome, though I noticed a few more fine lines around his eyes. Being a ghost has its advantages. One's appearance freezes in the year of death, so I still look youthful, he mused. As I floated down to perch on him, I gazed into his eyes. Hee, so you're much older than me now, unworthy of my attention. How about that? I've won this round. Suddenly, Shen Jizhou closed his book and removed his glasses, shutting his eyes as he rubbed his brow. Sumo, how could you be so heartless? In 3 years, you've only visited me in dreams once. His voice was weary, as if genuinely reproaching me. Yet he wasn't entirely wrong. I had indeed only graced his dreams once. Sternly insisting he observe morning for a full 3 years. He pondered for a moment before smiling through red-rimmed eyes. What if I were to seamlessly transition now? Would that not enrage you? Without hesitation, I gave him a thorough beating. After that, I never returned to his dreams. I muttered to myself, aren't you just afraid of my overwhelming charm? If I frequently entered your dreams, you might find it hard to forget me. After all, I, Sumo, am not just the best in the country. I could very well be the most beautiful in the province. The number of suitors who once wished to marry me could encircle the earth thrice. I chose you merely because I found you easy to manipulate. Leaning closer to Shen Jizhou, I feigned an attempt to pinch his cheek. Do you understand? He suddenly opened his eyes, directing his gaze towards me, a gentle smile gracing his lips.
Oh,
do you truly believe yourself so irresistibly charming? My heart raced, if I still possessed one. Could Shen Jizhou see me? However, if the sun god discovered I could be seen, I would be immediately banished back to the underworld, rendering all my efforts futile. Yet in the next moment, Shen Jizhou remarked, hanging there for 3 years must be tiring. Shall I find someone else to hang up? It was then I realized he was speaking to the wedding photo on the wall behind me. In the picture, I wore a forced smile while Shen Jizhou's lips curled into a faint grin. Anger surged within me. So you've been looking for a wife all along. But those blind dates didn't meet your standards, did they? After speaking, I felt a wave of insanity wash over me. I was the one who had urged my parents to set him up on blind dates, and I wished for him to find a new partner. Yet, hearing him say that still stung. Why was I still tangled in this emotional turmoil, even in death? Frustrated, I made several faces at Shen Jizhou and reenacted my tragic demise to scare him. But he suddenly turned away from the wedding photo, burying his face back in his book. Just then, my phone rang. I glanced at the screen. It was a call from Jiang He. He was a childhood friend of ours, known for his gentle nature, often mediating during my and Shen Jizhou's childhood quarrels, and somehow ended up bearing the brunt of the fights. Shen Jizhou answered the call, and Jiang He's familiar soothing voice came through. Ajo, a friend recommended a rather reputable psychologist. Could you bring the medication? But before he could finish, Shen Jizhou interrupted. Busy. Hanging up. He ended the call decisively. I stood there, momentarily stunned, my mind swirling with one question. Why did Shen Jizhou need to see a psychologist? After pacing in circles for a while, I resolved to visit Jiang He's dreams to inquire. After all, given Shen Jizhou's prideful nature, even if I entered his dreams, he would surely withhold the truth to save face. Jiang He revealed that Shen Jizhou was suffering from PTSD and depression, requiring significant medication just to sleep. I was taken aback. Yet, upon reflection, it seemed only logical. After all, Shen Jizhou had witnessed the act of violence and my untimely death. Any normal person would carry such psychological scars. However, he had always projected a carefree demeanor, masking his struggles so well that they were easily overlooked. Jiang He further mentioned that Shen Jizhou planned to end his life once Beibei grew independent. I fell silent. That simply could not be allowed. Thus, I returned to the underworld to request assistance from the King of Hell. I resolved to find Shen Jizhou a reliable partner. Subsequently, upon returning to the living realm, I spent several days observing Shen Jizhou and Meng Jiao. Meng Jiao had previously been my secretary, freshly promoted when tragedy struck, and I, her employer, had died, leaving Shen Jizhou to take charge of the company. Presently, she was in the lounge, playing with Beibei and her barbecue toys. Your father will be finishing his meeting soon. Just wait a little longer, she said, producing a small box from her pocket. Inside lay a jade pendant, its value unmistakable, certainly worth several months of her salary. Meng Jiao placed the pendant around Beibei's neck, tucking it into her clothing, wishing little Beibei a lifetime of peace. Though Beibei did not comprehend the pendant's worth, she politely replied, "Thank you, Auntie," and then quietly asked, "Auntie, may I hug you?" Meng Jiao hesitated, her arms opening slightly. Beibei dashed forward, pressing her ear against Meng Jiao's chest. "Your heart is beating so fast." Meng Jiao's eyes glistened with unshed tears. Just then, the lounge door swung open, and Shen Jizhou entered. "Trouble. Is someone from Dongsheng trying to poach you? If the position and benefits are suitable, you should consider it. I've always said, you need not remain at Tianyu out of gratitude or guilt." His tone was so cold. Meng Jiao stood up straight, responding, "Understood, Mr. Shen." Shen Jizhou nodded and began gathering Beibei's things. Meng Jiao gazed at his retreating figure, murmuring, "Actually, it's not entirely because of that." She harbored feelings for Shen Jizhou, but was deterred by complex reasons from expressing them. I noticed. Thus, I had been observing her closely in recent days. I discovered she not only continued to excel at her work, but also understood Shen Jizhou's private preferences, knowing he only takes half a spoon of sugar in his coffee. That he favored dark ties. Most importantly, she genuinely cared for Beibei, and her affection was sincere. Furthermore, she carried my heart within her chest. Shen Jizhou, indeed, needed to move on from his feelings for me and live well.
Sigh.
It seemed I had to take action. Slowly, I retrieved a red thread. This was the thread of fate. Once tied, Shen Jizhou would forget his feelings for me and be drawn to Meng Jiao. I tied one end of the red thread around Meng Jiao's wrist. Then, I floated over to Shen Jizhou, intending to tie the other end. Yet, as I reached out, I hesitated for a long while. Just as I resolved to secure the thread around his wrist, I heard him ask Meng Jiao, "How is the preparation for our wedding venue coming along?" Their wedding venue? What did he mean? Did they not require the thread of fate because they were already engaged? This revelation startled me, causing the thread to slip from my grasp, still untied. Meng Jiao promptly replied, "The completion rate is at 100. Styled in the traditional Chinese manner as you requested. The on-site photos and promotional plans have been placed on your desk." It turned out they were discussing work. For a fleeting moment, I was left speechless and intended to continue tying the red string for Shen Jizhou. Just then, he turned and emerged from the break room, cradling Beibei in his arms, causing my efforts to be in vain. With the two of them not occupying the same space, my endeavor was futile. Frustrated, I chased after Shen Jizhou, scolding him, "Ah, so close. How could you forget me? How infuriating." He paused for an inexplicable moment before resuming his stride. Just as I was about to continue my tirade, an ear-piercing ringtone pierced the air. "The King of Hell is coming to collect your soul. The King of Hell is coming to collect your soul." Indeed, even in the underworld, we have the internet, and ghosts possess cell phones. Trembling with trepidation, I hesitantly retrieved my phone. As soon as I answered, a furious roar nearly shattered my eardrums. "Have you resolved your affairs in the mortal realm? I went to great lengths to steal a thread of fate from the god of marriage. You must use it quickly before you are discovered. You will soon have completed 3 years since your demise. Beyond 3 years, not only will you be unable to reincarnate, but your soul will also dissipate.
Do not procrastinate.
Furthermore, you must return for the physical examination the day after tomorrow." I held the phone at a distance, repeatedly assuring, all right, I'll be there soon. You can rest assured I will definitely return the day after tomorrow." After finally ending the call, I sighed. How can I possibly rest easy? I anxiously circled around Shen Jizhou and Beibei several times, ultimately muttering to myself, "No, tonight I must enter his dreams and have a proper conversation." I entered Shen Jizhou's dream for the second time. In the dream, he stood in a tuxedo at our wedding venue, yet the hall was empty save for him. As I approached, I noticed him arching an eyebrow. "Finally decided to grace me with your presence? You'd rather visit Jianghe in your dreams than come to mine?" I forced a laugh. "Haha, I'm here now." Only then did I realize, so Jianghe informed you? How detestable. I knew he would always favor you. Shen Jizhou chuckled helplessly, appearing somewhat haggard. He enveloped me in his embrace, saying nothing, simply holding me close. I felt a bit out of sorts, After so long as a ghost, it had been ages since I had last felt his touch. And after 3 years apart, it all felt rather strange. In contemplation, I sought a topic, your illness. To my surprise, I was silenced by his lips.
Wow.
His mouth was warm. Of course, I had never tasted cold lips in the underworld. Whenever my friends urged me to seek out ghostly male models, I consistently declined. Mainly because their quality paled in comparison to Shen Jizhou's handsomeness and charm. Truly, once one has savored fine delicacies, coarse fare becomes intolerable. Yet, after 3 years, Shen Jizhou's kissing skills remained as formidable as ever. Before long, I found myself weak in the knees, unable to stand upright. Just as I began to suspect he had practiced with someone, Shen Jizhou grasped my waist with one hand, lifting me to sit on a white dining table. Instantly, the air was infused with the fragrance of desserts and flowers. Finally, he released my lips, his voice low and husky. I've waited 3 years for you. You owe me a proper recompense. With that, he kissed me again, his hands roaming restlessly. I hastily restrained his hands, my face flushed. Shen Jizhou, we're in the wedding hall, even if no one is here.
What?
Are you afraid? You were so bold when searching for 100 outdoor poses. His eyes glimmered with mischief, tinged with a faint blush. Or, do you mean to say that even as a ghost you are less skilled than I? At this remark, I became instantly incensed. How could that be? I've learned so much in the underworld. Just wait. Fueled by impulse, I unleashed everything my ghostly friends had taught me upon him. Much later, the wedding hall lay in disarray. Cakes and pastries were strewn across the floor. Flowers lay in tatters. I rested my head on Shen Jizhou's lap, playfully scratching his face with flower petals. Shen Jizhou, if only we hadn't gotten married. You wouldn't have to. What do you mean for me to do? He sighed with a smile. Sumo, marriage is inconsequential. I have always loved you. For a very long time, I was momentarily taken aback, the petals slipping from my fingers. Suddenly, countless memories of Shen Jizhou flooded my mind. The Shen Jizhou who laughed at my failed attempt to scale the wall yet handed me a band-aid. The Shen Jizhou who, instead of going to America, inexplicably chose to study in England with me. The Shen Jizhou who added a clause to my 20-page prenuptial agreement stating running away from home incurs a penalty of sharing a bed for 6 months. The Shen Jizhou who, even after marriage, would call me via video even while on a business trip, declaring it the duty of a husband. His love had always manifested in myriad ways, yet I had been too dim-witted to notice. The Shen Jizhou before me picked up a petal, flicking it playfully against my forehead.
Fool.
I sniffled, burying my head against his thigh. All right, I admit I might be a tad foolish. His voice was laced with laughter. Sumo, you too, can show some humility. I huffed softly and after a moment said, Shen Jizhou, do not resort to self-sacrifice. He fell silent for a moment before letting out a cold scoff.
Dream on.
Perhaps one day I'll meet someone beautiful and forget you. Shen Jizhou, why are you still so boastful? I reached up to fasten the buttons of his open shirt. However, you should indeed consider dating. Do not dwell on me, after all. A person as perfect as I cannot be found elsewhere. He seized my hand, teasing. How is it that after becoming a ghost, your audacity remains so intact? I rolled my eyes before turning serious. Shen Jizhou, please take good care of my parents and Bei.
You don't need to tell me that.
Put away all my things. Do not leave them at home. It's my home. I make the decisions. I bit down hard on the back of his hand. Burn that 100 poses book. It tarnishes my reputation. He laughed playfully. Why burn it? I could still use it with someone else. You shameless fiend. I ground my teeth in frustration. Shen Jizhou, how can you be so unrepentant? He leaned closer, studying me intently. Is that so important? Yet you still want me to find someone else? My voice was muffled. It's different. Sumo, I am serious. Take care of your health. Let go of me soon. Do not resort to self-sacrifice. He fell silent. I did not know how long the quiet lingered until I finally spoke. I won't tease you anymore. You must take Bei to your parents' house for dinner tomorrow. Once I finished speaking, I attempted to leave, but Shen Jizhou pulled me back into his embrace, pressing me tightly against him. Sumo, stay with me a little longer. This time, I discerned the truth. He was crying. The following day, I returned home with Shen Jizhou. Over the past few days, I had visited my parents multiple times. Yet I had never seen them cry so heartbreakingly. At the dining table, my usual place was set with a bowl and chopsticks filled with rice and dishes. I floated to that seat as usual, only to find my two elderly parents holding each other, tears streaming down their faces as they gazed in my direction. Had they cut into an onion while cooking? I searched the dishes on the table but found no trace of an onion. Or perhaps they understood Shen Jizhou's illness and his suicidal thoughts. I looked over at Shen Jizhou, who was quietly sipping tea, his eyes cast downward. That didn't seem right. Moreover, if that were the case, they should have been crying over Shen Jizhou. Or was it merely that they missed me? This thought made my nose tingle. I decided to float over and weakly embrace both of them. All right, save some tears for tonight's weeping. I still have to come find you in your dreams. To my astonishment, they gradually ceased their sobbing. Incredible. It was almost akin to a medical miracle, a supernatural occurrence. When I return for my examination in the underworld tomorrow, I must have a word with King Yan. As for Shen Jizhou, I must ensure to tie a red string around his wrist after the examination. Upon ascending to the mortal realm, it happened to be a Monday. Meng Jiao was standing at her desk, reporting to Shen Jizhou. What an opportune moment. I floated beside him, soothing myself for a while before finally mustering the courage to tie the red string around his wrist. Yet, several times he happened to be turning a pen, picking up documents, or checking the time. Had I not known he couldn't see me, I might have suspected it was deliberate. After much effort, I finally seized the opportunity to tie the red string. The instant it connected with the thread of fate, Shen Jizhou's gaze towards Meng Jiao transformed. No longer was it the indifferent demeanor of business. Instead, it brimmed with curiosity and interest, even desire. I was momentarily taken aback by this gaze when suddenly, the jarring sound of a phone ringtone pierced the air. King Yan is calling for your life. King Yan is calling for your life. As soon as I answered, I heard the familiar urgent tone. Have you completed your task? Hurry up, I am in need of assistance. I stammered in response. It's done. I will observe a bit longer before descending. After a few seconds of silence, her voice lowered slightly. I think it's best if you don't linger any longer. The effect of this red string is quite potent. I was yet to comprehend the potency of this red string when I suddenly heard Shen Jizhou say to Meng Jiao, "Don't change jobs. Just stay here with me, and I'll promote you with a raise." Meng Jiao was momentarily taken aback, then smiled. Really? Thank you, Mr. Shen. Shen Jizhou simply acknowledged her with a HM, his long, elegant fingers tapping idly on the desk. Let's have dinner together tonight to express my gratitude for your care towards Beibei all this time. Meng Jiao was even more astonished, but her surprise quickly morphed into joy as she eagerly replied, "All right, I will wait for you." Her tone was unable to disguise her excitement, and as she left, a faint blush graced her cheeks. I floated silently in front of Shen Jizhou's desk, observing him contemplatively regard the photograph of me displayed on the table before he finally took it down and placed it in the drawer. After a moment of hesitation, he replaced the locked screen photo of me with one of Beibei. I watched as he moved our chat window from the top of his messaging app, allowing all the messages, voice notes, and photos I had received after my death to sink to the bottom. Shen Jizhou began erasing every trace of my existence. Though I had anticipated this, it still left me feeling despondent. A mixture of joy and sorrow enveloped me. How wonderful! Now I can depart in peace, I murmured. Perhaps only to myself. Oh, how I wished to shed tears, yet none would come. Suddenly, the ding-dong of a notification rang out. Shen Jizhou's phone had received a message from my mother. "Xiao Zhou, shall we go to the cemetery together on Thursday?" His fingers hovered over the screen for a moment before he finally replied, "You can take Beibei. I will be quite busy that day, and my time is uncertain." King Yan was indeed correct. The effects of this red string were undeniably strong. Shen Jizhou was unwilling to even visit my grave so soon. That evening, Shen Jizhou dined with Meng Jiao, and I followed them. Once there, I felt somewhat like a masochist, compelled to witness their sweet interactions. Shen Jizhou would pull out Meng Jiao's chair, cut her steak, and inquire about her recent work status. He even probed into her romantic situation. Meng Jiao blushed as she answered candidly. Whether intentionally or inadvertently, they both tacitly avoided mentioning me. Midway through their meal, a waiter presented an exquisite gift box. Shen Jizhou slightly raised his hand. "Open it and take a look." Curiosity piqued. Meng Jiao opened it to reveal an imperial green jade necklace nestled within. Shen Jizhou remarked. The peace charm you gifted to Bebe, right? How thoughtful. This is a return gift. Meng Jiao's face flushed crimson. Mr. Shen, this is far too extravagant. I cannot accept it. Shen Jizhou remained silent, simply rising to personally place the necklace around her neck. Extravagant? To me, it pales in comparison to your heartfelt gesture. He spoke these words while still wearing my wedding ring. I felt a chill run down my spine, yet I picked myself up again. Shen Jizhou, how did I never notice how slick you are before? But how wonderful, I shall dispel your charms. I will no longer think of you, I murmured to myself, turning away and drifting off, unaware of the sorrowful gaze cast upon me from behind. In the following 2 days, I stayed with my parents. Coincidentally, Shen Jizhou mentioned he would be busy working overtime, so he sent Bebe to stay with us. This was quite convenient, sparing me the need to run back and forth or witness Shen Jizhou and Meng Jiao's sweetness. However, I still occasionally caught glimpses of Meng Jiao's posts on social media through my parents' phones. The captions and images were quite mundane, yet it was evident she was subtly showcasing the bags Shen Jizhou had bought for her, the coffee he had made for her, and the business trips they took together. In short, their happiness seemed to overflow from the screen. I tried my utmost to refrain from dwelling on their affairs and focused on cherishing my final moments with my parents and Bebe. After all, I would never again have the opportunity to ascend or visit in dreams. This was the price of acquiring the thread of fate. Speaking of which, my parents behaved quite strangely, frequently conversing with me as if I were still present, reminiscent of old times. For instance, while watching television, my mother would exclaim, "Momo, this is your favorite male celebrity, isn't it?" I floated cross-legged on the sofa and naturally responded, "Yes, but that was in the past. He has since fallen from grace." My father suddenly queried, "Fallen from grace? What does that mean?" I was taken aback, immediately straightening up. I noticed my father had put on his reading glasses, intently looking at news about the male celebrity on his phone, where the words "fallen from grace" were prominently displayed. I breathed a sigh of relief and casually explained, "It means he is engaged in actions that violate public morals, tarnishing his image in the eyes of the public." Speaking of which, there were clients who wanted to introduce him to me back then. TSK, the entertainment industry is truly treacherous. My mother nodded, thoughtfully. I will resolutely prevent Bebe from entering the entertainment industry. I smiled and floated over to Bebe, who was engrossed in building blocks, and asked, "Does Bebe want to be a big star?" She was constructing a castle and had placed a little girl atop it. Bebe is a little princess. I gently patted her head. Of course, Bebe is a princess. Bebe will always be mommy's princess. At that moment, I found myself choking up. Never mind. I would save my tears for tonight's dream with Bebe. Thus, I floated back to my parents. Out of the corner of my eye, I caught sight of something reflective on my mother's thumb. It looked eerily familiar. Upon closer inspection, I discovered it was Shen Jizhou's wedding ring. My mother was not picky. Despite having a collection of rings, she insisted on wearing someone else's cast-offs. However, since Shen Jizhou had even given my mother his wedding ring, it seemed he had finally let me go. Well, there was nothing wrong with that. On the anniversary of my death, the day was marked by a steady downpour of slanted rain, enveloping the sky in a misty haze that rendered the cemetery akin to a celestial realm. Of course, perhaps only spirits would perceive it thus. After both sets of parents had cleaned the graves with Bebe and departed, Meng Jiao arrived. I knew she came every year. Meng Jiao placed a bouquet of jasmine flowers at my gravestone. "Xiao Mo, I wonder if you still hold a fondness for jasmine? I remember how you used to ask me to place a bouquet of jasmine in the office every day." "I still do," I murmured softly in my heart. Raindrops fell incessantly upon the gravestone, while Meng Jiao tirelessly wiped it clean, her voice a gentle murmur of gratitude. "Thank you so much, Xiao Mo. Though you may have grown weary of hearing this every year, I want you to know that my gratitude is sincere. I have never forgotten the days I spent by your side. You were the first leader I encountered after graduation and the only one. You taught me so much. Even if you were often fiery and strict, it was precisely because of that I was able to secure my position. Rest assured, I will take good care of Bebe and uncle and aunt." Throughout her speech, she never mentioned Shen Jizhou, perhaps out of guilt. After all, for someone of her temperament, being with the ex-husband of her life savior must be a source of inner conflict and pain. A pang of regret washed over me. Perhaps I should have visited her dreams to offer her some solace? However, I believed Shen Jizhou would take on that responsibility. Meng Jiao's eyes were red-rimmed, her face drenched. Whether from rain or tears, it was unclear. She clenched her teeth and asserted, "Rest assured, Xiao Mo, that demon who hurt you remains imprisoned. And he is nearly driven mad. He will never know peace in this life." In a daze, I recalled Shen Jizhou's words. Death is too simple. I want him to live, to endure a lifetime in prison, worse than death. He had spoken these words just days before the trial of the Tianyu building parking lot murder case 3 years ago. Shen Jizhou had enlisted the most renowned lawyer in the country to defend the perpetrator, with one condition: I want him sentenced to life with no chance of parole. The Tianyu building parking lot murder case. The victim was me. It was an ordinary workday. After hours, I descended to the underground parking lot with Meng Jiao, intending to discuss work matters and escort her home. None of us could have anticipated encountering a madman bent on revenge against society. Yet, such is the capriciousness of fate. Death is equally indifferent. Whether one is a billionaire CEO or an entry-level intern, it matters not. I was stabbed in the abdomen, while Meng Jiao was struck in the heart. Shen Jizhou had just parked his car when he saw us and shouted in horror. The assailant fled immediately. Shen Jizhou neglected to pursue him and rushed over to assess our injuries. My consciousness began to fade, and all I could remember was being cradled in his arms, drenched in blood. I only recalled that his embrace was uncomfortable, for he was trembling uncontrollably. Shortly after arriving at the hospital, my soul departed from my body. The doctors informed me that I had suffered from excessive blood loss, resulting in prolonged oxygen deprivation to my brain, leading to brain death, sustained only by machines. They further revealed that Meng Jiao's heart had sustained irreversible damage and was currently reliant on ECMO for life support, urgently needing a heart donor. Given blood type, compatibility, and priority, my heart was deemed the best match. As we understand, Ms. Su had signed an organ donation agreement, which aligns with her wishes. However, we still require consent from immediate family members. Shen Jizhou and my parents fell silent. To witness a loved one's death and then be compelled to make such a decision was indeed a heavy burden. I floated around them, watching as my mother signed the document, tears cascading down her cheeks, soaking the white paper with black text. Meng Jiao has departed. I stood before my gravestone, motionless for an extended period. After today, I would bid farewell to the identity of Su Mo. I felt a twinge of reluctance. I had waited here for so long. As night descended, that familiar figure did not appear. When did I realize I loved Shen Jizhou so deeply? Perhaps it was in the final moments of my life. My mind first conjured images of my parents, then Bei, ultimately resting upon Shen Jizhou's visage. I began to reminisce about all the time spent with him, from childhood through youth and into adulthood. Only then did I comprehend that throughout my brief existence, Shen Jizhou had been a constant presence. He had been by my side longer than my parents. It dawned on me that I had long since fallen for Shen Jizhou. I could never bear to part from him. Over the past 3 years, I had yearned countless times to visit Shen Jizhou in dreams, yet I refrained. Those left behind always bear the heaviest burdens. I did not want him to remember me forever. The wind howled past my ears, and I lost track of time. Suddenly, the king of hell appeared, visibly irate. "What are you waiting for? Only an hour remains.
If you don't return to sign the contract,
your soul will truly be lost." She cast a fleeting glance into the distance before quickly averting her gaze. I dumbly inquired what she was looking at. "Is there another wandering spirit besides me?" The king of hell scoffed. "You do realize you're about to become a wandering spirit, right? Hurry back." With that, she whisked me back to the realm of the dead. In that fleeting moment of disappearance, I thought I heard Shen Jizhou's voice. "Su Mo. May you find peace and freedom in your next life." 3 years after Su Mo's passing, the Su couple began arranging blind dates for Shen Jizhou. Reluctant to offend his elders, he acquiesced, but always brought Bei along, causing these encounters to fail. However, during these attempts, he began to sense something unusual, as if Su Mo were by his side, either smiling or frowning. He feared he was losing his sanity and sought the help of a psychologist. The doctor diagnosed him with PTSD and severe depression-induced hallucinations, prescribing a plethora of medications in an attempt to banish the visions. Yet it was of no avail. Shen Jizhou continued to feel Su Mo's presence, even more distinctly. He then took a different approach, seeking out a renowned female Taoist within the circle. The Taoist ultimately performed a ritual on his wedding ring. Anyone wearing it, along with those within a 5-meter radius sharing blood ties with Su Mo, would be able to see her spirit. Finally, the Taoist cautioned that he must never reveal his ability to see Su Mo's ghost. Shen Jizhou did not understand the reasoning behind this, but from that moment on, he could indeed see Su Mo. He could see her floating in the air, pouting at him in a comical manner. This was the first time he had seen her since she had visited him in a dream 3 years prior. She had not changed much. She was still beautiful, her playful antics lacking any intimidation, instead appearing somewhat endearing. However, Shen Jizhou was unprepared for the fact that Su Mo had come with a purpose. She wished for him to forget her and to look ahead. To this end, she had even sought out the thread of fate. Shen Jizhou could never allow such a thing to bind him. How could he endure the thought of another being tethered to the other end of that red thread? Unexpectedly, he overheard Su Mo conversing with others. Realizing that her time was limited, he understood that she had resorted to the thread of fate because she was worried about him. Shen Jizhou felt an overwhelming joy at how much Su Mo cared for him, yet he was also profoundly saddened. This life was far too short. There was not enough time for them to express their feelings openly, not enough time to love one another, nor enough time to grieve. Thus, when Su Mo was absent, he sought out the female Taoist once more, ensuring that the thread of fate would not take effect on him. Simultaneously, he approached Meng Jiao, explaining the situation and enlisting her collaboration in a ruse. As anticipated, Meng Jiao agreed. Shen Jizhou had always been aware of the girl's psyche, reminiscent of survivor's guilt. Moreover, Su Mo had bestowed her heart upon her. In truth, Shen Jizhou was reluctant to accept that the heart of his beloved now beat within another's chest. Perhaps he was indeed a selfish soul. Yet, Su Mo had once declared that life was an invaluable treasure. He was willing to honor that sentiment. Thus, Shen Jizhou commenced his performance, adhering to Su Mo's plan. After tying the bond of fate, he would erase her traces and pursue Meng Jiao. With each task he undertook, Shen Jizhou could feel Su Mo's aura diminishing further. He heard her whisper, "How wonderful! Now I can depart in peace." He also heard her say, "I shall no longer think of you." Though her voice trembled, she feigned a sense of release. Shen Jizhou longed to pinch Su Mo's cheeks as he once did, teasing her for being foolish. Yet, regrettably, he could not display a hint of his emotions. On the day of the memorial, rain rendered Shen Jizhou's silhouette hazy. He concealed himself behind a distant cypress, watching Su Mo's ethereal form stand before the gravestone. He waited for an interminable time. Then, he continued to wait until a crimson figure appeared, escorting Su Mo away. In that fleeting moment of their disappearance, the world seemed to lose all color before Shen Jizhou's eyes, as if his life had come to an abrupt halt for the second time. Finally, he touched the wedding ring on his finger and murmured softly, "Su Mo, I wish you peace and happiness in your next life." Epilogue 1. At the age of 47, Shen Jizhou faced what might have been predestined, or perhaps it was simply the toll of years spent exhausting his body. In any case, he was diagnosed with cancer and did not have long to live. The doctors suggested chemotherapy to prolong his life, but he declined. After settling all affairs, Shen Jizhou spent the remaining days of his life clutching a photograph of Su Mo and their prenuptial agreement. He traced the edges softly, murmuring, "Su Mo, look. I have fulfilled all my promises to you. Take good care of your health and look after Dad, Mom, and Bebe. But there is one thing I cannot do. I cannot let you go, nor will I ever. And if I were to pass a few months early, would that not count as a love sacrifice? If so, there is little I can do about it. After all, you've already been reborn and should be beginning a life of peace and happiness in a new family. If I were to be reborn now, would I not be significantly younger than you? How I envy you, able to enjoy the youthful delights of life." Shen Jizhou's eyes slowly closed, and he spoke no more. His departure was serene, as though he had not succumbed to suffering. Epilogue 2. Su Mo labored tirelessly in the underworld for 15 years, fulfilling her obligations to the King of Hell. Due to her remarkable ability to generate profit, she had opted not to be reborn 15 years prior, instead signing a labor contract with the king. This allowed her spirit to remain in the underworld without dissipating. She did not disappoint the king's expectations, from real estate to social media, and even to producing short dramatic skits. She and her sisters had built a thriving business empire that spanned the entire underworld. During these 15 years, she first reunited with her mother and not long after, with her mother-in-law. The two elderly ladies rejoiced at her arrival, and after a brief stint of square dancing in the underworld, they were reborn. However, Su Imo did not anticipate that she would soon encounter Shen Jizhou, even before her father and father-in-law. Shen Jizhou was equally astonished. Though he could not shed tears as a spirit, his expression conveyed profound emotion. He embraced Su Imo tightly, examining her from every angle. "Why haven't you been reborn? Have you been waiting for me? Is your spirit well?" Su Imo, bewildered, replied, "Who said I was going to be reborn? I've amassed a fortune in the underworld." "Ha! Bet you didn't see that coming, Shen Jizhou. I'm more successful than you." Shen Jizhou's face soured. "What about these past 15 years for me?" Su Imo pondered. "Does that make you remarkable?" Upon hearing this, Shen Jizhou let out a few hollow laughs.
Ha! Su Imo was perplexed.
Didn't T-men typically enjoy being praised as remarkable? To be fair, she had treated Shen Jizhou quite well, considering he had little to worry about in terms of sustenance. Yet, Shen Jizhou disagreed. He felt deceived, a deception lasting 15 years. He resolved to remain with Su Imo for another 15 years, 150 years, 1,500 years, even 15,000 years, to fully atone for the hurt he had endured. The end. Thank you for listening. We shall meet again in the next story.